Have you ever stopped to think, what if the Nazis had actually won World War II? It wasn't just about winning battles for them. They had a terrifying, incredibly detailed plan for total world domination. It was called the New Order, and it was their blueprint for remaking the entire globe in their own twisted image. So let's dig into what this New Order was really all about. So picture this. It's 1941. Nazi Germany is at the absolute peak of its power. And Hitler gets up and makes this proclamation. Now, this wasn't some secret memo leaked to the press. No, this was a public declaration to the entire world. He was basically announcing, we're starting now. We are going to fundamentally reshape Europe and then the world based on our vision.
So what does this word, Neue Ordnung, the New Order, actually mean? Well, it was so much more than just a political strategy. It was a horrifying vision for a completely remade world. And it was all built on two main ideas. First, the total racial re-engineering of huge populations. And second, a relentless, brutal drive to grab more and more land for a permanent German empire.
To really get what the New Order was about, you have to understand the ideology that was fueling the whole thing. This wasn't just military tactics. It was a dark, twisted philosophy being put into deadly practice. It all rested on a couple of interconnected ideas that they used to justify just unimaginable cruelty. Okay, so these two concepts were dangerously tangled together. The racial doctrine, this insane belief in a so-called Aryan master race, was the justification for their geopolitical strategy, which was all about getting more Lebensraum, or living space. The logic, if you can even call it that, was as simple as it was evil. The master race deserves more land to thrive, and they were going to take that land from anyone they decided was racially inferior. And you know, this wasn't some vague, far-off ambition. In his book, Mein Kampf, Hitler spelled it out, crystal clear. The main target for all this living space was the East. He literally calls out Russia and its neighbors. This quote just shows you the cold, calculated thinking behind it all. He's saying, okay, stop looking elsewhere. The real prize, the land we're going to conquer and colonize, is in Eastern Europe. And these ideas weren't just theories in a book. They were a literal blueprint for action. Conquered Europe was set to become a giant, horrifying laboratory, a testing ground for their ideas about racial purity on a continental scale. By 1942, this is what that domination looked like on a map. I mean, just look at it. The huge area under their control is staggering. But here's the truly terrifying part. This wasn't the end game. This was just phase one. This was the foundation they planned to build the real New Order on top of. But their goal went so far beyond just military occupation. This map shows you what they were really after: the planned Greater Germanic Reich, a massive superstate. The whole idea was to completely absorb countries with so-called Germanic roots, you know, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, and turn them into nothing more than provinces of Germany. Their national identities would be erased, replaced by a purely racial one. In the East, the plan was even more nightmarish. It was written down in a chillingly bureaucratic plan called General Plan Ost. It was basically a step-by-step instruction manual for genocide. First, conquer the land, then murder all Jewish people and anyone else they called unworthy of life. Next up, either enslave, expel, or just kill the majority of the local Slavic populations. And the final step, move German colonists into the now empty lands. This was a detailed, systematic blueprint for mass murder. Of course, Nazi propaganda tried to sell the New Order as this amazing project for the common benefit of a new, unified, prosperous Europe. But the reality, as you can see in this powerful Polish resistance poster, was, well, it was slavery and butchery. It shows Hitler literally carving up the nations of Europe. The difference between the lie and the truth couldn't be more extreme. And as utterly terrifying as the plan for Europe was, the vision didn't stop there, not even close. The New Order was designed to be global. Once Europe was secured, the rest of the world was next. This map shows the colonial empire they planned for Central Africa, which they called Middle Africa. Now, the goal here was a bit different than in the East. This wasn't about mass German settlement. No, this was purely about economics. Exploit Africa's natural resources and its people to fuel the German Reich and its war machine. Then you have Asia. In a secret meeting in 1942, Germany and Japan literally agreed to split the entire continent between them. The dividing line they picked? The Yenisei River in Siberia. I mean, the absolute arrogance is breathtaking. Two powers just drawing a line across the world's biggest continent and calling it a day. So, what was the endgame? After they'd secured Europe and were busy exploiting Africa and Asia, the Nazis saw one final massive conflict on the horizon, a showdown with the United States. That was supposed to be the final battle for total, undisputed control of the entire planet. So, with a plan this huge and horrifying, how did it all come crashing down? Well, it ended the same way it began, through military force. The entire project, this whole grand design, was a house of cards that relied on just one thing. And when that one thing failed, the whole structure collapsed. This map just says it all. Remember that 1942 map where they controlled almost everything? Well, by March of 1945, the Nazi Empire is just a shadow of itself, getting squeezed from the east and the west. The major turning point was that catastrophic, unbelievable defeat at the Battle of Stalingrad. After that, they were always on the defensive. When you boil it all down, the New Order failed for one pretty simple reason. It was completely dependent on winning, always. The moment the German war machine was stopped at Stalingrad and started getting pushed back, the dream of expansion died. The blueprint could never be finished because the Allied armies took apart the regime that created it. The New Order ultimately failed. But its history stands as a chilling reminder of what can happen when a twisted ideology of supremacy gets combined with a ravenous appetite for territory. And it leaves us with a really critical question for our own time. What are the warning signs we should be looking for whenever any ideology claims it has the right to violently remake the world?